At this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger.
A state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you this important bulletin from the United Press. Flash, Washington. The White House announces Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor.
I am not a destroyer of companies. I am a liberator of them. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, that greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed works. Greed clarifies, cuts through, and captures the essence of the evolutionary spirit. Greed in all of its forms. Greed for life, for money, for love, knowledge, has marked the upward surge of mankind, and greed, you mark my words, will not only save Teldar paper, but that other malfunctioning corporation called the USA.
We should tell him the truth.
Special report. A presidential address to the nation.
This is an extraordinary period for America's economy.
The first great change in our economy is ironically caused by our very success in ending the Cold War.
Keep in mind, I took office in the midst of the worst crisis since the Great Depression. And we pursued a recovery that has been shared now by the vast majority of Americans. We put people back to work building bridges and roads. We passed tax cuts for the middle class.
But in many places, the mighty music has been all but silenced. Where once there was a great confident roar of American progress and growth and optimism, there is now the eerie, ghostly silence of economic stagnation, unemployment, inflation, and despair.
A stable American economy cannot be sustained if the world's economy is in chaos. Let us put our own economic house in order.
If you're like most Americans, you and your family know the sound of that silence. You experience it around the dinner table when there's a discussion of how to pay for the children's education. You experience it in supermarkets when you pick up an item, look at the price, and place it back on the shelf and move on.
And if we can take the proper action in the proper time, this can be the most important step we could take to prevent another recession, creating more jobs and income, and eventually more revenue.
We asked the wealthiest Americans to pay a little more taxes, their fair share. We put in place policies to help students with loans and protect consumers from fraud. We passed the strongest Wall Street reforms in history so that the excesses and abuses that triggered the global financial crisis never happen again, or at least don't start on Wall Street.
We should tell him the truth.
But I think we can have what most economists call a soft landing. I'm convinced that we're going to be able to gradually bring down prices so that they, in fact, end up with us not having to move into a recession to be able to get control of inflation.
Last night I was reading Rudy the story of Winnie the Pooh and the Honey Pot. You know what happened? Stuck his nose in the pot once too often, and he got stuck.
Maybe you ought to read him Pinocchio, Gordon. I thought that you were going to turn Blue Star around, not upside down. You fucking used me.
Well, You're walking around blind without a cane, pal. The fool and his money are lucky enough to get together in the first place.
But why do you need to wreck this company?
Because it's wreckable, all right? I took another look at it and I changed my mind.
If these people lose their jobs, they got nowhere to go. My father has worked there for 24 years. I gave him my word.
It's all about bucks, kid. The rest is conversation.
We should tell him the truth.
Hey, buddy, you're still gonna be president, all right? And when the time comes, you're gonna parachute out a rich man. With the money you're gonna make, your dad's never gonna have to work another day in his life.
So tell me, Gordon, when does it all end, huh? How many yachts can you water ski behind? How much is enough?
It's not a question of enough, pal. It's a zero-sum game. Somebody wins, somebody loses. Money itself isn't lost or made, it's simply transferred. Money itself isn't lost or made, it's simply transferred from one perception to another. Like magic. This painting here, I bought it 10 years ago for $60,000. I could sell it today for $600. The illusion has become real. And the more real it becomes, the more desperate they want it. Capitalism at its finest.
How much is enough, Gordon?
We should tell him the truth.
The richest 1% of this country owns half our country's wealth, $5 trillion. 1/3 of that comes from hard work. 2/3 comes from inheritance, interest on interest accumulating the widow's idiot sons. You know what I do? Stock and real estate speculation. 2/3 comes from inheritance, interest on interest accumulating the widow's idiot sons. You know what I do? Stock and real estate speculation.
A prosperity that begins on Main Street and extends to Wall Street, not the other way around. I saw jobs, prosperity, an entire future built with the hands of ordinary men and women with extraordinary.
And today our businesses have created more than 15 million new jobs.
And it's a great thing. We were very strong. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. We had the greatest economy in the history of the world. And that strength let us get through this horrible pandemic.
And today our businesses have created more than 15 million new jobs. Incomes last year in America rose faster than any time since 1968. Poverty fell at the fastest rate since 1968. Inequality is being narrowed. And we've also begun to close the pay gap between men and women.
I understand their worry and their frustration. We've seen triple-digit swings in the stock market. Major financial institutions have teetered on the edge of collapse, and some have failed. As uncertainty has grown, many banks have restricted lending. Credit markets have frozen, and families and businesses have found it harder to borrow money. We are in the midst of a serious financial crisis, and the federal government is responding with decisive action. We boosted confidence in money market mutual funds and acted to prevent major investors from intentionally driving down stocks for their own personal gain.
And there must be an end to a conduct in banking and in business which too often has given to a sacred trust the likeness of callous and selfish wrongdoing. There must be a strict supervision of all banking and credit and investments.
Most importantly, my administration is working with Congress to address the root cause behind much of the instability in our markets.
There must be a strict supervision of all banking and credit and investments. There must be an end to speculation with other people's money.
Financial assets related to home mortgages have lost value during the housing decline, and the banks holding these assets have restricted credit. As a result, our entire economy is in danger.
During the meetings on inflation, I listened carefully to many valuable suggestions.
So I propose that the federal government reduce the risk posed by these troubled assets and supply urgently needed money so banks and other financial institutions can avoid collapse and resume lending. This rescue effort is not aimed at preserving any individual company or industry. It is aimed at preserving America's overall economy. It will help American consumers and businesses get credit to meet their daily needs and create jobs. And it will help send a signal to markets around the world that America's financial system is back on track.
My conclusions are very simply stated. There is only one point on which all advisors have agreed. We must whip inflation right now.
A bear market is when the stock drops by at least 20% from its all-time highs. The S&P 500 dropped into bear territory due to the pandemic. Bear markets are so common that 9 times out of the last 17 times that the stock market fell into bear territory, there was a recession. And this does not include 2022, the current time period that we're in right now. So this just goes to show you that once you reach negative 20% on the stock market, it's more than likely a recession coming. It doesn't mean that it always happens, such as 1941, 1946, 1961, or even 87, but it just increases the odds of it happening. And that's why it's important to have consumer confidence in the stock market, because of past situations where consumer confidence lacked in the stock market. And when nobody's spending in the economy or the stock market, you see bear markets created. Which leads me to the next part of this video. Consumer confidence is so important that there was an economist named George Katana who created a book on psychological effects of the economy and recessions, and how people felt about their personal financial progress and what changes they expected in personal finances. This book would lead to the University of Michigan creating charts on consumer confidence indexes. And if you look here on this chart, you'll see the gray lines indicate recessions. Every time consumer confidence was down, a recession. The average bear market is 142 days. So that's a pretty significant amount of time. And if you look at 2020, the blue line on the left, you see that 2020 was an abnormal year. You've seen the market recover real fast. That does not indicate that you'll see a quick recovery from 2022 on bear markets. It just goes to show you that they could last anywhere from 1,800 days to 23 days. You never know. The world, as you know it, is one big economic cycle, and consumer confidence has everything to do with the Recession Plan.
We think that the public generally sees us as very likely to be successful in getting inflation down to 2%, and that's critical. It's absolutely key to the whole thing.
The irony of the word recession. Its Latin beginnings, meaning the word recessus. That just means a retreat or going back to what was. Thank you for tuning in to the Monk Investor. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode of the Recession Plan 3. What I wanted to go over in this episode was just an evolution of it all. Everything that you've learned from me, and just take it all in as a culmination of it all. So if you enjoyed this episode, please hit the like button below. And also too, if you're tuning in, I'd like for you to join me and subscribe. Turn on the notifications bell so you can become a subscriber. Also too, I have a Patreon account if you would like to learn further from me. I've been pretty successful with it. So if you're a long-time investor, or you're a stock options trader, or you do commodities, futures, anything, join. And the link will be below. It's for my Patreon members under the Monk Investor. Thank you for tuning in to the Monk Investor. Until the next time, peace.